Hello everyone. Welcome back to The Social Pillar. We're back for another episode. Back at the start of the season 2 of 2024. Welcome everyone. How are we?
Jared, hi Thea.
Oops. Hey, I was dancing to the music in my head and forgot that I need to speak at the same time. Hello.
Oh, good. Welcome everyone. Welcome out there. Good to see you both. And it's been like since our autumn break, now that we're back. And welcome everybody out there in our chat today and those watching this in the future. Welcome to The Social Pillar, an ongoing conversation about the value of role-playing games and their crafts, cultures and communities in our world. Delighted to have you here with us. Today, before we begin, as always, we'd like to acknowledge that we're each coming to you from Aboriginal land. I'm coming to you from Darug land in Sydney, and we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're streaming from and pay our respects to elders past and present, and extend those respects to any First Nations people who are watching. Welcome. We're three Forever Games Masters, and we welcome you after our autumn break. My name's Ian. I'm from Roleplay Experience, connecting people through tabletop role-playing games one table at a time. With me today is Jared. Welcome.
Hi. I'm Jared, also known as the GM Chef. I'm a professional game master, absolute passionate enthusiast, and I'm adding something to my little resume and dossier. Event organizer, because I realize the main thing I do in the TTRPG space these days is organize events, great and small. If you're playing D&D at a convention in Sydney, probably I'm probably involved in some capacity. So yeah, you come say hi if you see me there.
Very true. Keep your eye out for him. Thanks, Jared. And welcome as well to Thea. How are you?
Hi, it's me. I am well. I am Thea, also known as OMGM, dilettante and tea drinker. I get my sticky paws on lots of things, but can't talk about them here. Shh.
Okay.
General all-round content creator. I run some games. Actually, I'm running a game this weekend after having a little bit of time off. So much fun to be had. Pleasure to be here with you beautiful humans, as always.
As always.
What are we doing? As always, I'm at a loss.
What are we doing? Well, it's good to be back together so we can talk as well. We're doing something new topic today to begin our season. We're heading into winter now.
New topic.
Here we go.
Sorry, wait, not time for that? Okay.
No, it's always time for that. All the dancing's going on.
Topic,
hello to everyone in the chat dancing along with it.
I do a high kick, but I'm at a desk.
We're returning with today's episode. The new topic is tabletop role-playing games as team-building activities. So we've been talking about this a lot, actually, outside of here. And just for a bit of a precursor, role-playing activities have long been used as tools in developing people in business. There's a website named minitools.com which defines the purpose of team-building activities in a corporate setting as to motivate your people to work together, to develop their strengths, and to address any weaknesses. So any team-building exercise should encourage collaboration rather than competition. It's a very broad kind of a terminology for what a team-building activity can be. Our discussion today is to highlight the value of role-playing activities, but very specifically role-playing games, for individual and team growth, which from our experience has not been considered as a mainstream team-building activity in the corporate world, at least not yet.
We're here to change that.
We're here to change
that. Opportunity.
Challenge perception, yes. And so we're going to look at the varied experience that we've had actually with team building activities in general, what benefits they can provide, what are some of the pitfalls that can occur around these, and then consider how particularly tabletop role-playing games such as Dungeons & Dragons can bring value to professional relationships and people's development. So we want to welcome the chat to consider this, and particularly what team-building activities have you experienced? How effective have they been? What have been less effective? And when has role-playing been a part of it that you think? So have a think about that. We hope to see you there. Good to see Sammy Silk there and a whole bunch of others who are in our chat. But we'll begin with Jared to kick us off. What
Kick it, Jared.
Team-building activities, bro? and what do you see them as being come from them in the world?
So yeah, like being someone who's very enthusiastic about team coherence, cohesion, and making sure that everyone's on the same page. You know, having a mission statement where everybody's working towards the same thing. Whether it's been a kitchen that I've been involved in the past or my modern work environment, I like to make sure that I'm on the page and on the level with everyone that I work with, whether that's a very good, healthy work relationship, whether I know more about their personal lives or not. That is something that I endeavor to do day in and day out with my work colleagues. And there's definitely been environments where, you might just work with someone and all you do is the only contact you have is work related. You don't really know much about them or who they are outside of that environment. And there can be very casual sort of get-togethers and drinks and, you know, the office Christmas party and whatever. But there's no intent to that to you know, and there's no real reason or purpose for those things in terms of bringing together a community of people, and I feel like TTRPGs are the perfect tool for that. So, you know, there's so many good reasons that that can be achieved through tabletop role playing. I mean, the first thing that is important to me is building those connections. I've definitely felt that people that I've met through a tabletop role playing group, we've ended up becoming friends outside of that. It pretty much is this organic thing that happens, whether I've been lucky and, you know, those groups of people just are very like-minded and we have a lot of other things in common. That obviously helps. But because we're working towards the same collaborative goal, everybody just seems to get along really well. And you know, why would you not want that for your team and for your work environment as well? You know, you boost creativity, out of the box thinking. There's the power of play, and just going back to that, you know, low risk. You know, it's not all about, you know, trying to do anything in particular for any great purpose or putting on a face or anything like that. You get to step out of who you are as a person, whether that's your work self or your personal self. You get to just be someone different in a role play environment. So there's obviously the obvious box that gets ticked as well, the whole trust and empathy, building that teamwork and making sure that there's good cohesion. I find that tabletops are also good for developing leadership, because I think a traditional team building activity is very much, okay guys, everyone work together to do this thing, and people are probably just going to fall in their default roles because there isn't any other fun play or something that they can try. It's not so much an open table or it is something competitive like bowling or paintball or, you know, axe throwing, all sorts of cool things like, you know, you're trying to achieve something.
Yeah, I think that's where let's start from that point, because we know that there's some value to tabletop role-playing games. But before we get into that, I think, because it's like looking at team-building activities to start with, because to see where do they come from? What are our experiences of those? What are your experiences in particular of team-building activities, not tabletop role-playing games yet, so that we can get to there and we can see what are current corporate bodies looking at, what are current businesses using as team-building activities. And from your experience, you've seen the ones they have. What are the benefits that they have had that you've seen, and what kind of activities have they provided that you recall, and the level of success that they've had in your experience?
It's very much a social thing. Not so much necessarily a team building thing. I haven't done a very corporate, like, you know, I haven't had like a facilitator come in and be like, okay guys, we're doing this specifically with the intent of team building, but it's an extracurricular activity, if you will. That has definitely been good in terms of departments that maybe work separate from one another. In the industry I'm in now, the automotive industry, it does require a lot of different departments who are specialized in certain things, and you don't really get too much contact in a day-to-day basis. So that is really useful, because you are bringing, say, you know, because I work in automotive and we work in service, you've got the parts department, the front of house service advisors, you've got the mechanics, you've got the sales people. And so it just brings everyone together, and there's just something common that we can all do. So a basic activity like axe throwing, which just happens to be next door to our big branch, is a perfect thing for things like that. You know, it's just a matter of...
I can see no problems with having axe throwing next door to where you work. Zero issues.
No, but It's just a good thing where everybody can just sort of, shoot the shit and get along. And like the competitiveness isn't necessary. I get super competitive. I'll be perfectly honest. I've certainly won a session of axe throwing because I think I'm quite good. But that's
also,
that's for the people
not
who
a
are
surprise.
No, but that's
worrying.
but that's the thing is, again, it's not like that's not the goal of the evening. It's not about trying to make someone out to be the best or whatever. It's just like, your victory is celebrated amongst everyone. The people who are good are gonna do their thing, and everyone else is there to just have it going. I think that's a lesson we can take to tabletop role playing as a team building activity. Is like, just have it go, because it's probably not necessarily going to be people who are into tabletop RPGs. So I'd say, the biggest benefit I've seen is bringing people who aren't necessarily going to communicate and hang out inside or outside of work, just giving them a place to do that, giving them permission to do that.
Yeah, I've got a similar experience from a lot of the corporate backgrounds I've been through now. But being in the arts is less corporate than most, definitely. But there have been a number of experiences where I've worked when it comes to event management and front of house management, and even banks early on when I worked there. But seeing team building activities tend to be, like in the chat, Auntie Mimi, thank you very much for mentioning that some of the, you've had most team building you've participated in has been something mainly social rather than intentional. I find that as well. How about yourself, Thea? Have you had similar experience? Is it for any kind of team building activities through work?
Yeah, so I've had a few different experiences in different industries that I've worked in, with varying degrees of purpose, intention, and success, I would say. A couple come to mind, and I think it's no surprise that I love the whole indoor skydiving thing, was both when I did some part-time work at an indoor skydiving venue, but also as a participant, so with a work team going along. And it was a lot of fun, but I think that because for me, I come from something of a psychological perspective, and I look at team building, it's either a snobbish or a classicist look, depending on how kind you want to be when describing it, is sometimes I think that hanging out and being social is fine, but is that necessarily building a team or just being friends, hanging out, being a group? And I question, and that's kind of something that I'd like to talk about a little bit, is the team building, not all team building is the same. Not all team building is equal. I think, and it actually picks up on a point that Auntie Mimi made in the chat, saying that the most memorable one was where an artist facilitator came in and helped the team collaborate to make a visual artwork. And I think there was purpose there because it was taking people out of their comfort zone. Don't get me started on the science or lack thereof about taking people out of their comfort zone. I could go on for hours, and I'm fairly certain it's not that kind of stream.
We got time.
We got time. We'll make time. This is our timetable. But also the fact that it was
kind of interested. Yeah.
But facilitated. That it was for a purpose and it was to create something. And I think that is one of the key differentiators and one of the, I guess, pitfalls that I'd like to talk a bit about, if I may steal the spotlight for a moment, with team building and some of the concerns I have about it. And I'll admit I can be a little cynical.
This is a perfect segue into that. We've talked about benefits. What would you say, from your experience, pitfalls can be in this?
So I think there's a couple, and they probably fall into maybe 2 or 3 main categories. The first one is that a lot of the time when you say, hey, we're going to do a team building exercise, you can get the eye rolling, oh, I can't wait kind of approach. There is a lot of cynicism about team building activities, and I think based on some evidence and experience. I think sometimes these team building activities can feel artificial. Oh, I work with these people every day. We're going to go and have compulsory fun. And I think that does not necessarily have the outcome of building a team or even of building social cohesion.
Just before you dive into any further, that's a really key point, I think. And I wonder if, Jared, if you felt the same. I know I've experienced that eye roll, that, oh, here we go. Why do you think that is? What do you think it is about a lot of people's experience? And I'd be happy to hear if other people have had different ones, that a lot of the time people go, oh, God, not this sort of thing. Why do you think that is? That's like an experience.
The first thing that comes to mind, and Thea, you may have a deeper insight in terms of the psychology side of it, but I would say it's almost like it's like schoolyard. It's probably not peer pressure. It's probably not the. It's like schoolyard confidence in a way. Like, you know, at the dance with the boys and the girls on one side, and it's nobody wants to stand out. Nobody wants to look silly. Nobody wants to, you know. It's the idea of fitting in and being normal. And like when people fall into their routines at work day in day out, they know who they are in that space, and they can. Some people might not be completely comfortable being themselves, or anything other than what they're used to. So it's change, it's challenging the idea of self and the personal perception of what they're capable of and what they can do, because someone might be a brilliant, you know, they might be technically brilliant at what they do in that workspace, but they might not know how to build a bridge out of paddle pop sticks. Like, but who does? And I think, you know, for the three of us, like, we'd be like, yeah, that sounds like a cool idea, because we do have that sense of play and wonder and curiosity, because we've kept up a hobby that reinforces that.
That's really interesting, Thea. Yeah, what do you think?
And I think that actually touches on a point that I wanted to make, is that a lot of that sort of cynicism and disengagement comes because the people who are designing or implementing team building, it's predicated on a lot of assumptions, in that we bring a group together and we give them a thing to do, and that will necessarily result in team building, in greater team cohesion. And I think that is not an entirely accurate assumption, and often not based on a lot of evidence. And it also goes to, I guess, the second kind of thing that I think is a risk around team building for team building's sake, is that it's purposeless. There is this gap that I will do a team building activity, and whether I outsource that to an indoor skydiving place, or we go axe throwing, or we build paddle pop sticks, because I think that's the team building and the icebreaker that everybody remembers, and everyone goes, no, not for me. But whatever it is, there's no purpose to it. And, you know, from that psychological perspective, if you're going to do an activity, there's got to be a reason. There needs to be a need that you are doing this to meet. And when there is no need, I think that risk of it being seen as artificial, as being a manufactured situation, is much higher. And that ties into the other thing that I think people can see as is you do a lot of team building at the end of year. And I call that the pizza party effect, where it's, we're doing this as a reward. And it doesn't have salience to the people who are participating. It feels like a pizza party. Hey, you've all been doing 60 hours overtime every week for the past 6 months. Here's a pizza to say thank you.
A perk.
It's a perk. It's unrelated. It is. It's a gesture, and it can be seen as meaningless when there is no
token.
Thought. Yeah, it's token, because there's no. It's not meaningful to the people who are participating. And this is the thing I think that makes it seem artificial, is whether it is a tokenistic gesture, we're going to do team building, or it's done without purpose. It doesn't have salience. It doesn't matter to people, and that's why I think there's that risk of people just rolling their eyes. And then when you put people out of their comfort zone and force them to be vulnerable, and there's not that level of trust in the team, that then I think is a real risk to the psychological safety of the team. And I think that, and Anime has a point. It can feel forced. There has to be purpose and there has to be structure. And I think that's something that TTRPGs, particularly when run by a skilled facilitator, and I'm choosing that word carefully, not just a GM who is good, but a skilled group facilitator, I think that TTRPGs can manage that risk. I clearly have some strong feelings.
Yeah, so well said.
Yeah, and I feel like there's something you were saying in there, purposeless was an interesting point that came up a number of times. And like Jared, you said, and Thea, both you said about the going out on a social thing feels more like we're just here to be friends, and there may be some inadvertent bonding or trust that's built in there, but it doesn't seem to have direction, doesn't seem to have a goal. And it seems like some other ones that are done, there's a feeling, the cynicism coming around, that it feels a bit forced. I've got a feeling from my point of view that it comes from people who are running it that don't understand what the purpose of it is, what the needs are to make a group feel safe, trusted, etc. just briefly, because we're going to touch on not even touch on, we're going to dive into why we think TTRPGs are so valuable and really tip of the iceberg when it comes to corporate engagement or just team building engagement across industries and professions and communities. There's something I noted about there was a definition about the 4 main types of team building from a website called thesixpence.com, which I thought was very insightful. And the 4 types of team building activities that tend to be broken into are communication-focused activities to help build how we engage and share information with each other. Trust-building activities, so important. Don't get me started on trust falls, because we talk. If anyone's that's the big eye roll around that one is like people not understanding it. We did it in drama a number of times, and I get why we do it, but you need somebody who understands it and can communicate that, I think. So trust building is a key thing. Problem solving activities, to be able to look at things differently and look outside the box together. And then decision making activities, which is different. When to choose, okay, which path are you going to take, solving a problem, but then actually who's going to make the call and how do you support that? So I find that fascinating, because it leads right into where we're going to talk about now, and that's about why we believe tabletop role-playing games have all of this and more and are barely touched on. Jared, do you want to kick off and talk about what do you think the benefits of role-playing games as team-building activities?
Absolutely. It's something I have been endeavoring to, it's something I've been endeavoring to get organized with my work colleagues. I have certainly had an evening lined up that fell through, but even through doing that, I have found that some people aren't. I know people who were absolutely reluctant to even want to try it. They didn't feel it was their cup of tea. I didn't necessarily go in with a whole elevator pitch of like, hey, do you want to come and sit around a table with a bunch of your co-workers, pretend to be a completely different character in a fantasy world, and roll some dice and pretend to be an elf for an evening for 3 hours out of your time, and it may or may not be fun. I didn't hit them with an elevator pitch. I was like,
I'm sold.
I know. Everyone listening, yes, please.
Yeah.
But this is definitely from directed at people who, with intent from, again, a skilled facilitator, as you so elegantly put it there. Someone who does definitely love teaching people how to play TTRPGs. Someone who has facilitated new player groups time in and time again. So I definitely tried to pick and choose people who I thought might have a good time. And there was people who were like, oh, nah, if I do that, I know I'm going to get hooked. Like they're gamers and they're, but they're like, nah, like, oh man. And like things you have to like collect stuff and like, paraphernalia, and like, oh yeah. And like, I was like, yeah, okay, so I'm putting you down. And they're like, oh no, but and I'm like, oh, it's all good. Like you'll have a good time. And then people who are like, who I really connect with at work, but have no interest in that sort of thing, but they were willing to do it for me as a person. They were like, yeah, let's give it a crack. And then everything in between. So having done that and organized about 5 people, the group fell through. And then through word of mouth, the seed was planted and it spread across my little branch and across our other branches. And I had a random parts interpreter email me one day and he was like, yo, you got some D&D, my dude? You got some D&D going? He's like, man, I haven't played that in ages. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, maybe this is the kind of activity where it does require a little bit of open-mindedness, a little bit of enthusiasm, a little bit of interest in what it could be, or you just haven't done it in ages, and maybe people are parents now and life's taken hold and they're just like, man, that was a thing I used to do for hours back in high school and college, like that'd be so cool, and you do that, that's great. So yeah, because it is becoming this more prevalent thing, I think it's just such a wonderful activity that's going to tick so many of those boxes that you mentioned, Ian. It's collaborative goal building, working towards that, which builds that teamwork, the trust, the empathy for one another. Where, you know, if someone's going to be injured, you're going to have to be like, oh, how can I help that person like do that thing? Leadership and decision making, again, with a solid games master who is sharing the spotlight and making sure that it doesn't just fall into the same default roles, because I can just see again, like with the whole, you know, let's build a platform that can hold something out of paddle pop sticks and rubber bands. You're going to have someone who's like engineering mind, someone who's already kind of got a leadership, they speak up, but are they going to intelligently think about the whole activity and go, well, why don't we ask the slightly quieter people and like, you know, actually work together and get input from everyone? Whereas because it is this conversation based thing, that communication side of things and the ability to share ideas and build on and improvise is just inherently baked in, which leads to the whole you know, stretching your mind, stretching your abilities, becoming adaptive.
Oh, sorry.
Handling those curveballs and the things that, you know, can throw a lot of people. Yeah, improv. It is a beautiful thing. And like, you know, it's just not a thing that people might be used to. I've definitely heard that just even trying to speak in a different voice can throw people, because people identify their voice as their identity. It's a deeply subconscious psychological thing, and to change your voice and to sound any different from what you do on a daily basis is just not done. So it's just fun. It's fun for me, and when you try it, maybe it's for you, maybe it's not, but yeah, it's just the core thing is, I think it's very inclusive. It really doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what department, what your experience levels are, whether you're someone who's just started at that place of employment, or, you know, whatever. It doesn't. We're not strictly talking about work environments, or whether you've been working there for 20 plus years. It levels the playing field. TTRPGs are a great leveler of all kinds of things, because it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what your background is, socioeconomic status, whatever. You can play these games, and it is fantastic. So yeah, there's so many reasons why I think it should be done. Thank you for my TED talk. Thank you for listening.
No, that's okay. Well, to build on that, because I'm going to throw across to Thea in a moment, because I wanted to get your thoughts too. But I thought it'd be good to build on what you said, and also kind of to challenge it, but to provoke further.
Please.
Because you said something about when you're getting people in, whatever their perception of a role-playing game is, how do you engender trust in people who are at the table? How we get people in, I think, is something that we're all kind of looking in. That's for any kind of trust. It sounds like any kind of team building activities take someone with purpose who knows what they're talking about and can build trust, so that we can say, guys, this is going to be something that's going to provide this and this, and, you know, Asian team, blah, blah, blah. When you've got them at the table, what are things you know that you do as a facilitator that helps make it that it builds trust, that makes people feel like that they can be inclusive, particularly because there are very different kinds of people who engage in things differently? What have you experienced that TTRPGs provide to build that trust?
Certainly having challenges that require, you know, more than one type of character, so more than one archetype. You're going to need a strong, a sneaky, an intelligent, a charismatic, you know, the classic party compositions of TTRPGs, which we could do a whole episode on. You know, there's going to be gaming systems. D&D is one that can be very loosey-goosey, and you can play with a party of rogues, a party of bards, and then there are going to be systems where if you don't have party balance, you might suffer again if it's like infiltrate the mansion and you just have a bunch of barbarians. Hey, they're not going to be paladins in plate. They're not going to be skulking across rooftops, or at least they're probably not going to get away with it. Yeah, they can certainly try. But I would say, yeah, in terms of like less so much game stuff and really more about the conversation side of it and what is going to be required, it's absolutely what the tool that I love and I find that I use a lot in my games is this sharing of the spotlight. You'll quickly identify as a GM that there's going to be people who want to kind of contribute and they're very enthusiastic, and that's wonderful. You need that. But there's definitely going to be people who are going to be a little bit quieter, and their ideas are just as valid. They may not be as willing to, and you're going to test the waters and be like, okay, well, what are you thinking? How are you reacting? I don't always say, what do you want to do? Because that might not be the easiest question. I always kind of formulate in a provoking way, a less closed question way. What is your character thinking about what's just happened there? How would they react? How are they feeling? And then as soon as they start to think in that mentality of, okay, well, I think what the barbarian did was absolutely atrocious. Like they've just lopped someone's head off with an axe. That doesn't sound like my character at all. Okay, is there something your character would say to the barbarian? And then you just get them role playing and it just all works out. No. Like, that's the thing, is like, that would be me engineering a role-playing moment where the barbarian has decided to do something bold, and perhaps the slightly less charismatic person is playing an intelligent, sort of more humble, quiet, reserved wizard character. And I'd be like, okay, well, start communicating in character. And I would set up the opportunity for that to happen. I'm not going to be like, wizard, what do you say to the barbarian? Because I don't know their thoughts, and I don't know if they want to say anything. But getting people into that mindset of, okay, well, this is how I'm feeling, so this is how my character would do this, and then they can start to say things. And it's not going to be all about, oh, well, pick an amazing voice and give us a monologue, or start acting out at the table. It's just about role play, and role play is just, again, talking in character to each other, and stories come from that. People are quickly amazed at the fact that they're actually creating something without knowing they're creating it. Getting a bunch of art stuff together and like painting on a big canvas or something is all well and good. But again, there's an expectation there. It's like, okay, well, something has to go on this canvas and it needs to look kind of cool, and we need to all agree that it kind of looks cool, and there's a pressure there.
And some people will feel naturally visually arts focused, and some people feel like, I'm the most crap artist in the world, and that may not help them come out of their shell. I really want to pick up on something you said there. There's a few things going on then with experienced facilitators for role-playing games, and one of them was there's a lot of listening going on, because you're looking at a lot of people at the table and getting the differences in how they're engaging. Quiet ones who are very clearly out loud, ones who are kind of like happy to be social among the group, other ones who really are focused and like, we're going to get to the goal sort of thing, goal-oriented. So I completely agree. There's that sense of you're listening and picking up on and knowing that not only the differences in the way people are engaging, but you ensure there's a spotlight on every person, so every person has a go and has a chance to engage. And the flip side of that is, in the preparation, is providing scenarios that allow for all of those to be accessible in some way, or at least that you can adapt to those different people so that they can help. Okay, the wizard's like not happy with how the barbarian's gone straight at it, and it's like, well, then how would you do to respond to this as well? And I like that there's leading questions that you've got, so you understand the scenario, you understand where the people are coming from. There's a lot going on in there in terms of how to build trust as well. It is building trust as well as getting them engaged in the game.
Yeah, that perfect little example. It would be like, if we're going technical as a team building thing, it would be like, that could be a conflict resolution sort of thing. The other side of it would be, okay, there's a child stuck down a well. How are we going to do this? Oh, the wizard could just flood it with water, but that could be dangerous. Or the barbarian is going to climb down, but then both of them can't fit on. But maybe if we together did this and that, then you got this collaborative side of things. So there could be a lot of forethought and very technical advanced preparation for engineering a scenario that ticks all of those boxes. Absolutely. But I'd say the ability to improvise is I think that's just a far more relaxed way of doing it, because people are going to start to feel that I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on something that Among Mates D&D in the chat has said, that using D&D to simulate how to solve team issues is amazing, and I think that's a really important point, because that's kind of what we're touching on here, is that it gives you that sort of that extra layer of protection, and that's something I want to talk about in a sec. But you can simulate solving team issues and conflict resolution and communication skills, and it is that simulation. And there's a couple of really great suggestions in the chat on how to do that. I love what you were saying, Jared, in terms of, you'll say, oh, what were you thinking? And I'm probably going to steal that from my games. Among Mates, again, was talking about using an NPC from quite a people's background. So having those scenarios. And I think that it's a really key thing to address actual team dynamics and actual team issues. We do have a question from... Yeah, I will jump into that, but we do have a question from Arnie Mimi. What are our thoughts on participants that feel really shy in the context of a TTRPG because it's new for them? I will talk about power dynamics, but that there may be power dynamics. I don't know. What do you guys think in terms of that there are some who are really shy about TTRPGs? Are there things that you do to try and draw out people that might be uncomfortable? Not necessarily thinking team building now, but thinking in our games in general.
Jared, I've got an idea, but do you have some thoughts on that?
I'll quick fire it. Step one, seat if you're sitting doing it in person, seat them right next to you or the person that they are most comfortable with. If they're brand new to the game and to the hobby, bring them as close to you as a DM who's going to guide, encourage, be able to suggest ideas and move and be able to help them progress. And it's not about hand holding and being like, oh, well, this would be a cool thing that you should do, and then they just roll a dice and they're like, what did I do? Be like, well, look, you've got maybe like, I actually had to do this on Sunday running Dragonbane for some new players. You've got 3 spells. You can blow, you can do a big gust of wind, you can move a massive pillar of stone, or you can use fire magic and like set off a fireball. What would you like to do? What do you think would be cool? And then they go, oh, okay. And then that inherently, again, we could just literally watch a session of D&D or role-playing game and be like, that's team building. That's team building. Yep. Because they were like, okay. And then immediately they address the group and they're like, oh, well, we're fighting a ghost. Didn't you do a myths and legends check where you figured out that they're actually immune to physical things, but fire and magic's really good? So I should use my fireball, right? And everyone's like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great, because you're leading them into limited choices, but choices all the same of things that they can do that link into this, and then it's their choice of how they want to go about it based on the observations.
And not just saying this would be the best thing to do, because that's not really a GM's responsibility anyway, but being like, what do you think would be cool? And the fact that person had already felt comfortable enough with this is all people who'd never played, 2 people knew each other, everyone else was new. The fact that organically happened is just wonderful. So the trust had come out, but being able to guide that person into that process was really good. And then again, if you can't necessarily do that as a GM, you've got a lot to think about and to focus on. Pairing them up with a player, like if it is an established group, with the just addressing the whole the power dynamics that may already exist in a group and they're coming into it. Definitely pairing them up with someone that you would trust to do that for you. I do that constantly in my games. Ben, who we've had on, I think we actually spoke about that.
Well, I'm going to jump in on that too, because that's similar to what I do, and I'll keep it brief, because I think this is leading right into what you're going to talk about.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
I'm going to have I do something similar when it comes to any introductory game. I spend at least 2 or 3 scenes where actually I establish it, I buddy them up. So right from the very beginning, they buddy up as players first. So they get to, if they're a little shyer, have them out, talk to somebody who's near them that they get a chance to engage and tell them who they are, why they're interested to be here, because that establishes trust between a pair. Then you get the characters introduced together, and then they tell each other a little bit about it. I get them to introduce the other person's character a little bit, and I tell them that ahead of time to say, you're going to have a chance to talk, and they're going to introduce you to the party. So that means you get a chance to then share and bond with this particular person, but also open it out to the group. And then I make sure there's some scene in that where it's like, okay, everyone pair up like you had. What do you do together? Because then it's just starting that sense of being able to establish. And if I'm feeling like they're comfortable, then I might say, okay, it's different pairs this time. You'll be with this person, you'll be with this person, because they're freed up. And it's a bit of a judgment thing. So
Yeah.
leading on to
This,
yourself there.
Which does beautifully lead on to what I wanted to talk about. Again, coming at it from that more sort of psych perspective of things, is I really want to look at sort of the team dynamics and psychological safety. And I think that is potentially one of the key aspects of and why TTRPGs can be or could be such an excellent way to address a team building in the classic idea of team building and balancing those team dynamics. I think one of the key things when we're talking TTRPGs is there is an inherent level of psychological safety. One of the things we talked about earlier was, we're going on to these different team building activities, whether it's axe throwing, building paddle pot sticks, indoor skydiving, whatever, is that you are asking people who have built a professional persona and have probably decided what they are comfortable disclosing at work about themselves and who they are and what they're not, and putting them into a situation, this idea of getting people out of their comfort zone. Why? People don't need to expose vulnerabilities to their workmates. But what you can do with TTRPGs is by giving people characters, and if we go with the classic build where you have a character a bond and a character flaw, you can give them a flaw, and it may or may not line up with them, but it's their character. So the fact that they're going from one role, which is their work role and who they are, into another role, is then we're not forcing people to expose vulnerabilities and things that they don't want to expose. We're not forcing them into a position that might actually be exposing them to psychosocial risks. And I think that is incredibly valuable that we can do that for people. It's a much safer way. And it's also that added layer of almost anonymity that you can get. Similar to, people when they're online are sometimes much more comfortable saying things that they wouldn't say in person, for good or ill. But I think that protection is really important. And I think trust, we keep coming back to trust. And the more I think about it, the more I think that's where a lot of these team building issues fall down, is if the assumption is that trust will come from this team building activity wherever it is. Whereas actually I think it is a prerequisite. You need to have trust in the team for any of these team building activities to be effective. You're not going to build a team from a bunch of people that don't know or trust each other and maybe don't like each other. And I think that ties into the next thing that came up that a few people have mentioned, is when you have a TTRPG where you have a DM or a game master, you inherently have a referee. You have someone there who is going to stop it going too far off the rails. And I think you remember when I spoke at the start, I was talking about not just a GM, somebody who can run games well, but somebody who can facilitate groups. And I've done a lot of group facilitation in my work at various different purposes and various different levels. And that's a skill set. And I've known some DMs who are great storytellers, amazing voices, but maybe not necessarily that great at managing a group. And that can be fine for a game. If we're having, even at a gaming store, even with friends, that can be fine. Everybody's there, because everybody has a purpose. When I'm playing with my friends, we all want to get together and have fun, and we're aware from our wonderful session 0 that we all talk about the importance of, but we're all aware that we want to support each other in having this collaborative storytelling experience. When you come in to do team building, that is not necessarily the case. There are people there, as we've mentioned, who may have no experience with TTRPGs. There are people who might have been dragged along reluctantly, who just wanted to get the free snacks and lunch that came with it. So you don't have that common purpose, which means there is a higher risk if you're going to pull people into potentially challenging or uncomfortable situations. So having a DM who knows how the game is run and understands how we want everyone to have fun, that's a key component, but also someone who has a sense of how to facilitate groups. And we've had a few comments about, how to get quieter members involved. But in a work setting, you want to do that in a professional way. And if it's been set up the way I think team building should be set up, it needs to be for a purpose. So when you have a group facilitator who is also a DM who knows what the purpose of this activity is, whether it be communication, whether it be to explore problem solving, resource allocation, decision making, having that person means that you can guide the game to achieve that outcome. And I think that is incredibly important. And the final point that I had about why I think that having a TTRPG has that level of that it is a safer option, to put it very bluntly, is when you're in a work setting, it's got to be defensible. You can't just, it's not back in the 20s or the 30s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s where let's go do team building. I've just put 3 cases over the bar. Let's get drunk. It's exposing people to unquantified risk. Even a lot of activities where we want to get people out of their comfort zone, you're exposing people to unquantified risk. Whereas in TTRPGs, we know exactly the kind of risk that we're exposing people to. We're giving them the characters. We're giving them left and right of what they can and can't do. And I think that's why TTRPGs can be really, really useful. I haven't really been keeping up with the chat, but I can see there's thoughts about facilitation skills are super important. Absolutely they are. And I think we've spoken about this, professional DMs and what differentiates a professional DM from a skilled, fun DM. And I think that's one of the key things. If it was up to me, I think if you're going to run TTRPGs as team building, it also needs to be someone who is a facilitator for team building. Don't just get anybody in to run a game, because then you're potentially losing some of those benefits. And so I think that's kind of that's me in a nutshell of some of the things where I think this is and surprises me, in fact, why this hasn't happened more, given the popularity of TTRPGs over the last 5 years.
I think
why
to
we're
answer
seeing
that,
it.
because
Yeah.
I think people still don't understand it. I mean, we've talked about outside of here and since we began this, that we're in a golden age of role-playing games at the moment, in the sense that 10 years ago, it wasn't quite there. 5 years ago, it started to be something that's hitting the mainstream in a big way. And now it's even bigger than that, partly because of COVID, in fact, because of the way that people could engage and not even be next to each other, but they can still communicate and engage that way.
Yeah.
We're in a position, it's more mainstream than it ever has, but it's still misunderstood or not understood.
Yeah, good point.
I think it's still something that's being developed. So I think what you said was great. I completely believe in what you said, in the sense of a skill facilitator is what's needed to be able to lead a team, because that's somebody who knows, I'm here to meet with a team to get them to a certain place, and at least get them to understand a certain place, to be able to get them all to get to a certain place, to you're achieving certain goals, and to help that understanding from different points of view, because it's a teacher. Like you said earlier, Jared, it is a teacher. You have somebody who's able to have a group of people working together. That takes skill. That takes skill at understanding a lot of different kinds of people. So I want to ask you, Thea, just before I might jump in with a couple of thoughts as well.
Yeah.
I wanted to see as well, you said defensibility, and I think that's a really interesting point, because you can say that you are clear on what some of those, the purpose, what some of those goals are that you can reach. Can you tell us, from your experience, what are some of those goals that you can tell business managers, this is where you're going to end up with this. Here's the framework. Here's the kind of boundaries that we can work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it harks back to what you were saying, Ian, in fact, about the types of team building activity. Because, for example, say that somebody approaches you and says, I want to do a team building activity to enhance communication in my team. That means I can design an adventure where communication is key. If it is about problem solving, I want this team to be able to utilize resources better and, understand that. Well, great. I'm going to design characters where one person has half a key, one person has another thing, and they have to share for those resources. If it's about decision making, there's going to be puzzles, there's going to be challenges that they have to come to. There's going to be, I might even take some of the ethical dilemma type stuff where, there's one parachute and 4 people in the plane. How do you address that? I don't have a solution. And, as GMs, we often will come up with situations where we don't have the solution, but I can't wait to see what the players do. And
that's the best stuff, actually.
Yeah. And also I think, and maybe I because of my background, I do tend towards more, team building for a purpose around those more sort of skill-based things. But I think there is value in also, I want my group to have fun. I think that is valuable. And if that is the stated purpose, then absolutely, let's design an experience that is fun. And I think maybe that's even a key thing, like I know that I'm a bit of a classicist and purist, but hey, fun is a valid outcome as well.
Well, you're about to build into where I'm coming into it anyway, so this is a very good point. I'm really good. Thank you for saying that. That everything we've talked about so far, the need of an experienced facilitator in particular is needed. The ability to build trust in many different ways, which requires listening, requires experience and understanding different people, and requires a way to set up tasks or scenes that all these different kinds of people can engage in different ways. You don't necessarily have to have an answer, but you have a challenge and they come up with the answer together.
Yeah.
That's the fun part. And you brought that in, fun. That's something I wanted to bring in as a particular thing I think is missing. And it's been missing. We could go into a long discussion about how the Industrial Revolution destroyed fun and destroyed the nature of play in adult lives. But in simple terms, all I can say is this. The value of engaging in imagination exercises and simply play is really downplayed the more you grow up. Like learning play.com, fantastic website, sums up scientific research on the value of play. And it says people learn best from experiences that are joyful, that meaningfully connect to play in their lives, that are actively engaging and allow testing things iteratively again and again, and they are socially interactive. So they have this wonderful developed activities, workshops, etc. that you can engage in. But it is so focused around children.
Yeah. Okay.
This encouragement lessens and lessens the older we get as adults. The value, and you can see it in the value of arts, entertainment, games. They're seen as frivolous activities, extraneous to business, and more serious activities, more adult activities, or more superior in some way. And yet every person I talk to at work loves play and loves remembering things where they got to engage with people in a fun way, and it built trust, it built engagement. It was things that they got to work on together and enjoyed. So there's something we don't value in business, the idea of fun as a time that you need to spend with a team to ensure that they actually work together. It's actually a purpose. We need to be able to have fun. We need to be able to trust each other to have fun. So that means both of those actually go hand in hand for me. Professional games masters, or actually ones with facilitation as a primary skill, let alone being a games master as a TTRPG leader, they've got experience in creating safe places for play. Places that will be a number of things. They're places where colleagues can step out of their perceived role, which we talked about. I know it as an actor. I know it as background for performing arts. If you go to a masquerade and people have a fancy dress, people do not act the normal way they do. They tend to act bigger than they usually do. It's amazing. And even just differently, being able to step out, there's a freedom. You said it. It's completely right. It's amazing. And you're not seen as a functionary of your business anymore. You're actually a person with a different skill set, and people see you as that because of the thing like, I didn't know you could do that. And it's like there's a sense to it of discovery and fun. There are also places where participants have an equal footing and as players to work together. There's a collaborative effort to it. Most of the TTRPGs I run tend to be collaborative rather than competitive, and I think it is at heart a collaborative activity. The scenario ends at the end of a session, but the experience that you take with it, with each other, that stays. You remember that. You take that with you, particularly if there's fun involved in it. You'll remember those relationships and those people you're with. It sets up places where people can also be safe to take on identities and roles outside how they're seen day to day, as we talked about, that show off skills that you wouldn't normally see day to day. That'd be amazing for managers to be able to see people that you went, I had no idea you could do this, and we have a need in this area. Oh my God, we can talk about this. It gives people potential to develop their roles and their careers and the group, the team, and the business itself. So that's amazing. And there's places that it also, TTRPGs provide places where people are encouraged to play, to create, to imagine, to express, to problem solve, to propose things that could go real tits up. They could go really wrong. And the best thing about it is it's safe. If it goes bad, it's like, they're trapped down the river in the middle of a dunghill up to their stomach or something. How are you going to get them out of it, sort of thing? And everyone suddenly pitches in because they're having fun anyway. So
Flooding the well was a bad idea. Sorry, Timmy.
Exactly. Oh my God. So we've got this wonderful ability in role-playing games to encourage the use of imagination, different ideas, creative solutions to things. And finally, just wanted to say about role-playing game spaces can have experiences that create memorable bonding moments between people. The repeated exposure of that, because at the beginning it's like a really simple thing, and you need to start simply just to how do you build those basic relationships. But if it's something that people can come back to time and again over a period of time, they'll get to understand the dynamics. They'll get to understand they can free themselves up outside their day-to-day work. They can try things they don't normally get to. They can, you can try to do anything in a role-playing game and it can screw up, but at least you get the chance to do it, which may not be possible in your day-to-day work. So because of that repeated knowledge of that gives you a place to explore, gives you a place to try things, makes you feel freer, makes you feel trusted, makes you feel free. And there's a lot of fun to that. Very passionate about it, as you can see, and I've seen it. I say it because it's from experience. I keep seeing it, and I really hope people can understand this so that they actually can get more out of their teams and their businesses. So that's a lot about me. That's a lot of in my sense.
That's fantastic and so valuable. I mean, I think that's you're so right when we say that, in this kind of industrial post-wave capitalist world that we live in, people can lose the value of fun, and there's a lot of value in fun. There's a lot of value in art. There's a lot of value in creativity. And I think that's, TTRPGs really illustrate that.
Oh man,
such a cool thing about this. I hope you guys have.
That went deep in a very, very special way, and that was really lovely. Yeah, damn. We're on that very, very humanizing note. We are unfortunately on the tail end of our time here. We've utilized our time incredibly well, though. So thank you for that, Ian. Thank you for your perspective as well, Thea. It's very insightful it is brilliant, our little three-way conversations, because we do all have very unique takes and understanding of things. That's it. As I'm, once again, I'm going to be taking away a lot of things from this that I'm going to be moving on, because like I said at the beginning, I've tried to start a D&D group. I'm not trying to start a D&D group or campaign with my co-workers. I can like I also said at the beginning, I'm running events left, right, and center. I've got players coming out of my ears. You're doing it
wrong.
I really intended to run a single session with the purpose of uniting different people from different areas of my company into a thing that I think would be fun for everyone. So I'm now going to go in with even more intention of my session, with even more ideas in terms of encouragement and recruitment ideas, so that I can get everybody not only interested but excited to come and try this thing that I'm so passionate and love. It's instilled me with confidence in terms of my ability to make sure that this is going to be achieving a certain outcome and not just going to be, hey, let's all just hang out after work and like drink some beers and roll some dice. Again, that sounds amazing. It's going to have some intent. It's going to be better for having had this conversation with you guys. So thank you so much for that. Because we do all have. Yeah, we do all really have deep understandings, and thank you for the chat as well. You guys have been amazing tonight. It's been really, really good
amazing
to
all
hear
the time,
that. Amazing always, but it's been really, really good to understand that people do understand the idea of a social gathering versus a team building activity. That team building can have can miss the mark, but with tabletop role playing, there is a pretty good chance that with its incredible magic, its incredible ability to just do a lot of these things organically, bring people together, enhancing that trust, opening communication, out-of-the-box thinking, the power of play, that personal idea of this is fun and we did something. How cool was that? Instead of just the work mentality of we just did something. And it is that inclusivity, that idea of, people are going to be better or worse at different things, but we get to celebrate that, and you can also be good or bad as a character, and the stress melts away and you can just be more human with each other. So or not human. In the case of a fantasy role-playing game, you can be something completely different. How cool is that?
Anything you like.
So
yeah, I've taken such a few things away from this as well. Thank you guys. I'm going to magpie as much as I can because there's so much to this. Like we just touched the tip of the iceberg for it. But as you said, we haven't got to the end. Please keep the conversation going, guys. If you're keen, we want to hear more. Send it in chat. Send it on our socials. Thank you, everyone, and thank you both. And thank you to our chat for joining our conversation and watching. Thea, would you like to tell us what do we got for next week?
I would. Checks notes. I believe we are... Do you cast your minds back to when I absolutely waxed lyrical about Star Trek The Adventure Game? I think it would be wonderful, and I know it's not just me, we all agreed on this. We should get another one of our wonderful trio to wax lyrical, and we should run a competition. Looking at the three of us, which of us do you think is likely to be waxing lyrical? We're going to be getting Jared to talk a lot about Dragonbane. I'm very excited.
I'm so
yes.
keen. I'm so keen.
So guys, out there, you haven't seen how much he has been jumping out of his skin to talk about this, so we cannot wait.
We had to turn on motion tracking so that we could keep the camera on him.
Jared, are you ready for it next week?
Oh, are you guys ready for me to just lecture you about how amazing Dragonbane is?
Yeah, sure. Just let me know how to mute you in.
Yeah, that's right.
So we can get a word in.
Yeah, so I don't know if I accidentally muted myself during part of this conversation. So yeah, sorry at the beginning if I muted myself. I looked over and I looked like I was muted, but I don't know. But whatever. What I'm not going to do is be muted next week because Dragonbane is my hot favorite new TTRPG. I think it does a lot of things really well, and I want to talk about how and why it does things really, really well. So yeah, I will be giving you guys an overview of what it is. I will be,
Please
I'll just save it for then.
We're back. We are back, baby. We are back
my
with
brain
games
is
and we're talking.
Immediately overloaded.
We're very excited.
Are we raiding
continue the
tonight?
Conversation. We are. So here we have a couple of choices. We can go raid a friend of the channel, Bexplore, who is playing Baldur's Gate, or we can raid friend of the channel, Brimstone Beard, who is doing some electronic arts.
That sounds cool.
Do we feel like something? Yeah, I think that sounds pretty cool.
Try that on,
visit. Yeah, let's go visit the excellent Brimstone Beard, who does have a magnificent beard. Okay, so that's who we're going to be off raiding. I've had a look in terms of D&D players tonight. There's not a lot going on, unfortunately. Or fortunately, people are talking about it. But let's do something different. So that's where we're going to raid. You can also, I know that there was an ad that happened just at the last little bit. If you did miss some of it, these episodes will be heading up on YouTube. There's usually about a 3-week turnaround to get them up. But what is our YouTube channel? I'm sure somebody will put a link in. I tried to do the command socials, and clearly I don't know the commands on our own channel. We've been doing this for how long?
Check out our Facebook.
They
We'll
broke
put the
it.
link in there. So you can have a look there. YouTube, just
Join
look
us
up the
on
social pillar.
Discord. Yeah. Google the social pillar. I've actually not tried Googling the social pillar. I have no idea if we come up, but hey.
It comes up with
that'll
some
be fine.
corporate jargon like what we've been talking about tonight. If you search us on YouTube, it's the first channel that pops up, but you don't have to if you're in the chat right now. It's there.
Oh, sweet.
Nice.
Check it out.
Well,
Thanks for tuning in.
We've got to wrap. Jared, take us out of here, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
We
everyone.
love you
Thank
all.
you once again for joining us on the Social Pillar. Jared, Ian, Thea, that's us. We're back in. We're season 2, 2024. We got lots of things planned, lots of exciting things. Stay tuned, share it with all your friends and family, and start a tabletop RPG team building adventure in your workplace today.
Sponsored. Patent
Social
pending.
Pillar approved.
That worked.
Good night, everyone.
Pillar
Thanks so much.
approved.
Thank you,
Have a good
everyone.
one.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.